Turn right.
Good evening, everyone. This is John Taft with the Kenworth W990 for my anniversary week with Talent Enterprises. And I had to get it today here in Colorado. So that is where I'm going to begin with today. Month. Um, and, 16 years working as a janitor and not at Sonic. I'm gonna need more hours still. But let's take a ride, everyone.
Turn right. Keep left. Keep right, and then exit right. Exit right. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Turn right. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Finally, we are here. Let's do this. Turn left. A new route. Recomputing. Never mind. I'll find a new route. Keep left. Turn right. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Go straight on. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. This is where it ends. Ready to roll. Rerouted. Turn right. right. Keep right, and then continue straight on. Go straight on. Go straight on. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Turn left. Go straight on. Keep right and then turn right. Turn right. and then exit right. Exit right. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Go straight on. find a new route.
Black tides and the underground restaurant where you can combine claustrophobia and indigestion and then take the elevator to get back up.
Keep left.
There was also my dislike for headfuls of human hair. So like nets or tendrils of poisonous jellyfish. I feared entanglements. No real bat would ever suck the blood of necks. The neck is too near the hair. Even the vampire bat will target a hairless extremity, by choice a toe, resembling as it does the teat of a cow. Vampire films have always seemed the swift love of what happens, the anticipations of the tongue, and the infra-corrugated, salt nose,
Keep
nose
left.
like a dead leaf, nose like a radiator grill, nose of a denizen of Pueblo. And in the evening, the supersonic hymn of praise to our
Rerouting.
Creator, the Creator of bats, who appeared to us
Keep left,
in the form of a
and then
bat,
turn left.
and who gave us all things, water and the liquid
Turn left.
stone of caves, the woody refuge of attics, petals and
Fine.
fruit and
I'll
juicy
find a new
insects and the beauty of slippery wings and
Keep
sharp
left,
white
and then
calyx,
turn left.
shiny eyes. What do we pray for?
Turn left.
We pray for food, as all do, and for health, and for the increase of our kind, and for the deliverance from evil, which cannot be explained by us, which is hare-headed and walks in the night with a single white, unseeing eye, and stinks of half-digested meat, and has 2 legs. Goddess of caves and grottos. Bless your children.
This episode was produced by Maria Paz Gutierrez.
Special thanks to Drew Richardson, Jennifer Brennan, and everybody else at Symphony Space.
All right, that'll do for today. More stories of the nonfiction variety headed your way next week.
Tired of the racket and the rancor? Our imperfect union has a ways to go, but we won't know where we're going if we don't know where we're coming from. That's why we're here. Just because things are complicated, that doesn't mean we have to be confused. Join me, Jen White, for a daily conversation for a changing country. Next time on 1A.
1A, weekdays at 11 a.m. on News 88.7.
It's
Get
currently
ready to turn
91
right.
here at your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Turn right.
Good evening, I'm Stephen Kay. Looks like it'll remain partly cloudy tonight with a low in the high 70s. Tomorrow, slight chance we may see some showers in the early afternoon. Otherwise, mostly sunny with a high near 94. The time is now 7 o'clock.
Get ready to turn right.
From Futuro Media and PRX, it's Latino USA.
right.
I'm Macaine Mosa. Today,
We are in a war. Some houses are burning. We don't know what's happening.
a cartel
ready,
turf
turn
battle
right.
breaks out in a tiny Mexican border town known for
Turn
smuggling
right.
migrants into Arizona.
It was crazy. It was something that you see in movies.
It's pushing the locals who lived in the shadows of the border wall to have to cross north, adding to the groups of asylum seekers from all over the world.
It is millions of dollars being made.
A look at the border wall, the rhetoric in an election year, the business of human smuggling, and the volunteers lighting up the darkness. That's all coming up on Latino USA. Stay with us, no te vayas.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. At least 7 people are dead, dozens are injured after armed gunmen launched attacks on several religious sites in Russia's southern region of Dagestan. NPR's Charles Maines has more.
The attacks appeared coordinated, taking place both in Dagestan's capital, Makhachkala, and in the coastal city of Derbent. Within minutes, gunmen set fire to a synagogue, attacked a police traffic post, and 2 Orthodox Christian churches, reportedly murdering a local priest. Witness video shows police engaged in a series of firefights with the attackers. Local officials say officers make up the majority of confirmed casualties thus far. Meanwhile, the hunt for the gunman continues. Unconfirmed local media reports claim several attackers have since barricaded themselves in a building. Russia's investigative committee also said it has launched a criminal investigation into acts of terror. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
The heat wave that's been hanging around for days continues, bringing scorching temperatures to the Midwest and the Northeast. NPR's Juliana Kim reports now severe storms and widespread floods threaten those regions while the hot spell moves to the south.
Midwestern states
Turn
including
left.
Ohio and Illinois began to cool down Sunday, while states in the East Coast such as Pennsylvania and New York are forecast to get cooler starting Monday. But just as the hot spell moves away, severe storms are causing new problems for the region. Flash floods caused by heavy rain are wreaking havoc in Iowa and Minnesota, while South Dakota anticipates the worst flooding to occur Monday and Tuesday. Up north, a tornado watch is in place for parts of Maine and New Hampshire. In the south, triple-digit temperatures have already appeared. On Sunday, some parts of Mississippi experienced heat indexes where it feels like temperatures go up to 110 degrees, according to the National Weather Service. Juliana Kim, NPR News.
In Pittsburgh today, groundbreaking for a new Tree of Life synagogue. It's the site of the mass shooting in 2018 that was the deadliest attack on American Jews in U.S. history. Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff spoke at the ceremony.
All Americans must stand against anti-Semitism and hate in all of its forms. As was said, it is a poison on our democracy. We all must be against it.
11 people were killed in that attack, shot at close range with an AR-15 rifle. The gunman has been sentenced to death. A Florida family is suing NASA after a piece of space junk crashed into their Florida house. Alejandro Otero says his son called him about the crashing object at their Florida home when he was away on vacation. NASA confirmed in April it was a metal support used to mount old batteries on a cargo pallet for disposal, and that the pallet was jettisoned from the space station in 2021. They thought it would all burn up during re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere, but one piece made it through. It's unclear how much the Oteros are suing for. This is NPR News. U.S. Postal Service is honoring the late host of the game show Jeopardy, Alex Trebek, with a new stamp. As NPR's Joe Hernandez reports, that stamp mirrors the trivia program's unique question and answer format.
The blue and white stamp resembles the clue panel on the hit TV program and says, quote, "This naturalized U.S. citizen hosted the quiz show Jeopardy for 37 seasons. Just like on the show, the answer on the stamp is written as a question. Who is Alex Trebek?" The Postal Service is officially releasing the stamp next month. A sheet of 20 Jeopardy stamps will cost just under $15. The tribute comes as the hit trivia show celebrates its 60th year on television. Trebek died in 2020. Joe Hernandez, NPR News.
At the weekend box office, Pixar's Inside Out 2 took the top spot with an estimated $100 million in ticket sales in its second weekend. And that sets a new record for an animated sequel. The film is this year's highest grossing film so far, with $724 million globally. And in about a week, Inside Out 2 will likely blow through the $1 billion mark, which would make it the first film since Barbie to do so. In second place, Bad Boys, Ride or Die, starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, with $18 million. It's already grossed $146 million domestically. In third place, The Bike Riders, with $10 million. That film cost a reported $35 million to produce. U.S. futures contracts are trading mixed. Dow futures are down a fraction. NASDAQ futures are up 0.1%. I'm Janine Hurst, NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Joyce Foundation, committed to advancing racial equity and economic mobility for the next generation in the Great Lakes region. Learn more at joycefdn.org. And the Annie E. Casey Foundation.
Hi, it's Jeremy Hobson, inviting you to join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. here on News 88.7 for The Middle. This weekly live national call-in talk show amplifies the voices of people in the middle, politically, geographically, or philosophically. The Middle is a nonpartisan and non-judgmental space where everyone can feel comfortable sharing their views and being part of the conversation. So join me for The Middle with Jeremy Hobson, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on News 88.7.
also been getting involved in improving this town as a whole. Dora might be petite, but she's not small in terms of the impact that she has in this area of the border. And this morning, at the library, something feels off.
But I could sense it was different vibe. It really was a different vibe that the locals were telling me something's happening. This is scary because there was so many trucks, different, brand new, white, big trucks. You could not see who was inside because they were dark, but going fast and driving or slowing down. So it was different than what we'd seen all this time.
At the end of the day, Dora drives back across the small port of entry back into the U.S., and she drives home to Tucson. The next morning,
we're Laura Mercari, back to Sasaway, with rooms, with things to clean up.
And during the hour-and-a-half drive south to the border, Dora gets a warning.
I get a phone call from one of the women that work at the center. It says, Dorita, don't come. We are in a war. There is a fight. There is gunshots all over these mountains. In town, some houses are burning. We don't know what's happening. Please don't come.
At the time, Sasabe, Mexico was a town of about 1,000 residents. Families had been there for generations. There's kind of not much here. There is a small official U.S. port of entry, and for decades, this has been a corridor for migrants crossing the border. The press has reported that for the last 12 years, the local boss of the Sinaloa cartel, managing Sasabe, Mexico, basically left the townspeople alone and allowed them to work. And everyone sort of knew that the cartel was smuggling people, but they all went about their business without getting involved. Until now.
Keep left.
Now you should know that there are two Sasabes split up by the international border boundary. There's Sasabe, Mexico, and Sasabe, U.S. And in the area dividing the two, there's about a 20-mile stretch of border wall. And over the years, that stretch of wall has had more than 20 gaps or openings, holes in the wall that can be huge enough to fit a herd of cows, for example, or small enough to fit a person sliding under the wall. And those have been repaired multiple times, mostly because of erosion during and after the monsoon seasons, when torrential rains cause damage, and because people crossing cut holes into the fence. There was this one specific opening in the border wall, not too far from the Sasabe, U.S. port of entry, about a 40-foot gap where large groups of migrants, refugees, most of them families, had been crossing, where they'd wait on the other side of the border wall for the border patrol to turn themselves in and ask for asylum.
That gap was very easy for that group that was already in that town.
Until the construction company doing repairs closed that huge opening in late October of 2023. According to Dora and to other people we spoke to, including a Mexican security analyst, this caused the cartel smuggling operation to be pushed further east into another group's smuggling territory. All of this under control of the Sinaloa cartel.
It's pretty much the same organized crime group. They're just different ramitas.
Keep left.
The infighting within the cartel and the closing of that gap in the wall collided. And Dora says the fighting escalated daily. Within 2 weeks, at the beginning of November, locals woke up to find several homes set on fire in their town. So they ran to U.S. border officials seeking help.
People were trapped. They could not go south to Mexico, to another towns near Mexico, because it was already controlled by the new cartel group coming in, taking over.
important problem facing the U.S.
As we enter this all too familiar deja vu moment with a second Joe Biden-Donald Trump face-off.
And I want to talk about another top issue, the border. I'm ready to solve the problem, I really am. Massive changes. I mean it sincerely.
Democrats say, please don't call them animals, they're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans, they're animals.
Immigrants, the border, all the time. Here's Speaker Johnson.
I'm going to tell the president what I'm telling all of you, we told the American people, border, border, border.
The border is likely to be all talk for a lot of people. Many will say that the U.S. is battling an invasion to describe desperate families asking for refuge legally. For Dora, the humanitarian powerhouse, it's not.
I have not seen an invasion. There is no invasion in our borderlands. It has never been one in 40 years I've been around those borderlands.
What is new is the unprecedented cartel battle happening in Sasami, Mexico. A conflict that has given birth to a new group of asylum seekers. The locals who had lived their whole lives in the shadow of the wall without intentions to ever come north. And here's the thing, and this is really important. Yes, there are millions and millions of dollars to be made in the drug smuggling business. There has been for decades. But there are now also millions and millions more to be made in the people smuggling business.
And the
we mean tarp that's been hung up on trees, not REI-style tents. In the middle of the camp, there's a large canopy with supplies. Lots and lots of water.
Coffee. There is a camp stove so that people can come and make hot coffee or ramen, and refried beans, lots of refried beans. So that's kind of just our go-to meals. As we move further into the camp, we see this decked out Sprinter van, and that's where we meet Andy Winter.
Andy and his little dog Rafa are usually the only ones who stay at the camp after sunset.
He's often the first face that migrants see when they arrive at the camp, and he speaks to them in Spanish, talks about how the camp works, offers them hot coffee. And Andy is a retired educator from Vermont. He's a former tennis pro. He's probably more than 6 feet tall. He is very all-American, and his van is next level.
This is like the most popular, RV in America right now for folks. It's a Mercedes Sprinter, and it's just souped up a little bit. So it's got 4-wheel drives, solar panels across the roof, satellite. It's super nuts right now, but yeah, of course.
Andy's van is the Wi-Fi charging van, an indispensable tool in this remote camp, where there is little to no phone signal, no Wi-Fi, no electricity. This is where people can charge their phones, and once they are connected to Wi-Fi, they can call their family members who haven't heard from them in days, sometimes weeks, and tell them that they've made it to the U.S. And the future looks different for folks. Some people could go from the camp to a detention center, or they could be deported quickly. Many will petition asylum and get released into the United States with a court date years from now. And others might not even get the chance to ask for asylum. After President Biden's recent crackdown at the border, critics like the ACLU just sued, challenging Biden's new order to turn asylum seekers back once they reach a certain number.
Last fiscal year, there was a sky-high number of what Border Patrol calls encounters, with 3.2 million, and 2024 is on track to hit an all-time high. We're talking families, little kids, elderly folks from all over the world, Central and South America, Africa, India, families from Afghanistan.
And that's largely because of something that significantly changed at the border a year ago.
And that's coming up after the break. No te vayas.
Keep left.
Then each start your day with the news on Morning Edition and catch up later with all things considered. News doesn't wait. Stories evolve during the day, in courtrooms, financial markets, on the streets, and at kitchen tables, locally, nationally, around the world. Hi, it's Robin Young. Each weekday, check in with Here and Now for the news as it's happening. That's Here and Now from WBUR and NPR News.
Here and Now, weekdays beginning at noon on News 88.7.
Hi, I'm Camille Nelson, your member relations specialist. If you are a monthly Always member and need to update your donation payment method, you can go online to houstonpublicmedia.org/update. Our easy online form will ensure that your information remains secure. Also, consider making the switch to EFT. You will help lower our processing cost, which puts more funding into the programming you love, trust, and rely on. Thank you.
Support for Latino USA comes from Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one management software built to enhance the efficiency of your entire business from anywhere in the world. More information at odoo.com/Latino. That's odoo.com/Latino. Progressive Insurance. Use Progressive's rate comparison tool to evaluate car insurance options in one place and find a rate that works. More at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations.
Welcome back to Latino USA. I'm Mariel Barbosa.
And I'm Fernanda Chavarri.
To understand the rise in large groups of people crossing the Eventually, it closed the border by turning people seeking asylum right back around without giving them a proper asylum screening.
We closed the borders very early. We made a great decision, took a lot of heat over that decision, but it turned out to be the right decision.
And as the years went on, vaccines became available, mandated masking ended, and Trump left office, border agents continued using it at the direction of now President Joe Biden, even as he declared an end to the pandemic.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over.
President Biden declared the coronavirus pandemic is over.
President Biden promised to end Title 42. Instead, he is now expanding restrictions on asylum seekers.
So much for a temporary policy that was supposed to be about the pandemic, huh?
And here's the thing. The whole time this policy was in place, hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world stayed in Mexican border cities, waiting.
So when the policy ends, that's when we start to see large groups of women, children, families, all crossing the border, wanting to turn themselves into the Border Patrol to begin the asylum process that had been denied to them for so many years.
The number of people crossing illegally into America this past year has been staggering. 10,000 a day last week. It has been a record-breaking year, and objectively, it seems clear that the US government has lost any sense of control.
In Mexico, these groups have been managed, you could say, by smugglers working for Mexican drug cartels. And they started pushing large groups through Sasabe.
That's when we started seeing the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people presented in our borders. But this is people who were already, a lot of them in Mexico. So this is the consequences.
That's Dora Rodriguez once again. She's the humanitarian migrant rights activist from southern Arizona.
It is millions of dollars being made by this bottleneck that had happened in Mexico due to the policies that were created during the last administration.
David Saucedo, a security consultant in Mexico and expert in drug cartels, says that the cartels take advantage of this.
Las políticas migratorias de Estados Unidos son aprovechadas en cualquier sentido y en cualquier modalidad por los carteles mexicanos.
They look at changes to U.S. immigration policy even if the migrants themselves are completely unaware of any of it.
If we look back to the early 2000s, we would see small, sometimes family-run groups known as polleros or coyotes, and they would organize how and where people could cross illegally into the U.S., trying to go undetected.
Tenían un negocio muy lucrativo.
They had a lucrative business. It was essentially a family business.
Era llevar a migrantes mexicanos o centroamericanos hacia los Estados Unidos en busca del sueño americano.
At the time, David says, the smugglers' clients were mostly Mexican or Central American adults migrating for economic opportunities. And about 15 years ago, the big Mexican drug cartels began to take notice. They could make a lot of money trafficking people.
Empezaron primero a reclutar a los polleros.
So first, the cartel started recruiting those polleros and coyotes.
Y después a desplazarlos por completo para adueñarse ellos de este lucrativo negocio.
Only to displace them altogether and take over the business of smuggling migrants.
With that much money to be made, the territorial disputes that we talked about that happened in October and November in Sasabe, Mexico, when Nora was working at the library, all of that heated up. That's also at the time when the construction company had closed the gap in front of the town.
Remember, two wings of the Sinaloa cartel started to fight for territory to smuggle people. And that violence affected the quiet border town, forcing locals now to seek refuge in the U.S.
It was a turf war unlike anything Sasabe, Mexico had ever seen. Many residents told Dora,
"No vamos a morir, nos van a matar, nuestros niños.
We are going to die. They're going to kill our children." So Dora says hundreds of residents ran to the port of entry on the Mexican side and begged Mexican customs officials to help them. Many of them ended up sleeping right there outside of the Mexican border office.
This went by for almost a week and a half, and there was no one showed up from the Mexican government to protect these people. That old National Guard that is right across the street from our own resource center shut their door and hide. And then November 6th, a young man calls and says, Dorita, we cannot let our people die here. We have to do something. And I said, do whatever you want to save your family.
Dora drove to the border and saw that people had cut a hole in the fence and were rushing through.
With the little ones in their arms, people in wheelchairs, women with their walker, a man with a broken leg. That kind of scenario. Running all over, like we're out.
Cartel violence has sent people living in the border town of Sasabe, Sonora, fleeing for their lives, crossing the border into Arizona.
El terror se ha desatado en distintos poblados del norte de Sonora debido a enfrentamientos armados entre grupos criminales.
Caught in the crossfire, residents then scrambled into the U.S.
It was crazy. It was something that you see in movies.
We asked Customs and Border Protection for comment on what their agents saw at the official port of entry in Sasabe, and they sent us this written statement from the time of the outbreak back in November. It says, quote, Customs and Border Protection is aware of the recent violence in Sasabe, Sonora, Mexico. Many residents of this town found haven at the Mexican immigration authorities and Mexican customs until the violence subsided. Individuals who presented themselves at the port of Sasabe, Arizona were evaluated on a case-by-case basis. End quote.
We also asked officials with the Mexican government for comment, but they did not respond. As the violence continued, Sasabe, Mexico became a ghost town.
So this town is this place got to be from 2,500 people to what, 50 now?
And Dora had to make a difficult choice.
Keep
to
left.
close Casa de la Esperanza.
It was not lightning. So this is what is really hard, personally, because I knew we were pretty much saving lives. At least we had a center where we could help them.
Dora hasn't crossed into Sasabe, Mexico, a place that she would go to several times a week. She hasn't been back since the day that she closed Casa de la Esperanza shelter last fall.
My heart breaks. My heart hurts.
Keep left.
Now she's focused on helping residents of Sasabe, Mexico, who crossed into the United States during the crisis. Dora says that some of them hope to stay in Tucson, but others really want to go back to their homes, and some already have.
During our visit to the U.S. side of the border in Sasabe, Arizona, we hadn't planned on crossing into Sasabe, Mexico because of this violence. But when Gail Koserek, a volunteer with the Samaritans in Tucson, tells us that she's going to cross just feet from the port of entry, we decide to cross with her for a few minutes in the cold and windy pouring rain.
And then exit right.
Okay, let's come over here with the bag.
Gail is crossing to bring food to the abandoned dogs that the Sasabe residents had to leave behind in November when they were running north to save their lives.
See, there's some doggos there right now. They're gonna be so happy when they see us. They're gonna go, oh, here comes that lady.
Gail is super energetic, super fierce. She also used to run Casa de la Esperanza, the shelter, with Dora. But unlike Dora, Gail has been crossing at least once a week back into Sasabe with her 50-pound bags of dog kibble.
And look what happens when you bring the food. They know. When they saw the car, those dogs came crazy running over there.
Oh my goodness, there's so many of you! There are about 15 dogs that run straight to Gail once they hear still remember the fear she had as she saw houses being set on fire all around her. She adds that while things have been much more calm, she's sad to see her hometown become a ghost town.
Keep left.
If you've been around the borderlands long enough, you may have heard this expression. When the US sneezes, Mexico catches a cold. That's because the deep connection between the two countries is really palpable here at the border.
And the cartel violence that ravaged Sasabe, Mexico since last fall has not only affected the locals, it's put migrants and asylum seekers from all over the world right into the crossfire.
That's Miguel. We're not going to reveal his name or exact age because he fears for his safety. Just know that he's a young adult from southern Mexico, and he saw firsthand the cartel violence that was happening at the border.
Miguel tells us that his uncle lived in Tucson and had been working at a restaurant for many years. Miguel was in Mexico starting a family, and he needed money, so his uncle told him he would pay for smugglers to get him across so he could make a living, buy his house, and start his new family. Miguel had no idea what was going on. It was his uncle who took care of everything, paid the smugglers, he left his home in Tucson in order to make that trek north with his nephew. Miguel tells us that they met up with coyotes who transported them mostly by bus from his town to right near the border. And their journey of about 1,500 miles went pretty much okay, Miguel said, until they got to the Sasabe area in Mexico. Remember, this is just months after that gun battle crisis that forced residents in Sasabe to escape their town. But Miguel and his uncle didn't know anything about that.
Era toda la luz de la luna.
Ya era de noche.
Sí, ya era de noche.
Noche, caminando, todo bien.
Todo bien, hasta que de repente nos rodearon.
In the darkness of night, Miguel and the group of about 25 people, mostly from Central America, were walking. They were being led by a smuggler. And then out of nowhere, they were suddenly surrounded by a group of men with flashlights and guns.
Dice, ¿con quién vienen? Y pues, ¿cómo estábamos?
The armed men asked the group who they came with.
O sea, ellos querían el nombre del coyote.
Ajá, algo así. Pero pues, como nadie contestó y como luego empezaron a disparar hacia arriba del cielo, como que nos entró más miedo.
They wanted the name of the smuggler, but no one in the group said anything. So the ambushing group told all the men to run and began shooting at them, separating the women and children.
Pues a mi tío le dieron una pierna y él gritó. Entonces yo me regresé.
He says his uncle was shot in the leg. Miguel took off his jacket, put it on his uncle, and hugged him.
Y lo tapé con la chamarra y encima de él. Y se escuchaba como corrían los disparos. Y la gente gritando.
He laid on top of his uncle and could hear gunshots, screams, and people running around.
Cuando me dice, ya no aguanto, me dice, cuídate mucho.
His uncle told him to leave him behind. Ya no aguanto. I can't take it. He told Miguel to take care of himself.
Y a los 5 minutos, pues se murió en mis brazos.
5 minutes later, he died in Miguel's arms.
Cuando amaneció, pues lo único que hice fue subirme al primer cerrito y fue cuando vi la barda.
Miguel stayed with his uncle's body until dawn in the desolate Mexican desert, all alone. And with the light of day, he went up a hill, and that's when he saw the border wall and the United States right from where he was standing.
Mi miedo era de regresar hacia atrás y encontrarme.
His feet covered in blisters. Miguel walked by the dead bodies of people in his group. He was too afraid to go back. Once he got to the opening that we've been describing throughout the episode,
experience, it's really clear that he is still in shock
and then turn
and attempting to process the trauma.
Un psicólogo me dio
Turn
terapia.
right.
He's met with a psychologist and had therapy for the first time.
Me dijo para que tranquilizara mis nervios, mi miedo.
Trying to help him calm his nerves and control his fear.
The people who is coming north, seeking asylum or migrating, they are coming into a war zone that they don't even know. They are trapped too, because these groups are not telling them, hey, we're fighting for this area. They're not. They want their money.
Money, like most things, this is all about money.
That's coming up after the break. No te vayas.
You're listening to News 88.7. Good evening, I'm Stephen Kay. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Comcast Business, partnering with companies to help keep their business moving by offering a network of cybersecurity solutions and round-the-clock support. Powering possibilities, restrictions apply. ComcastBusiness.com.
At All Things Considered, what unites all our conversations is curiosity. Is he a good hugger? Whether we're speaking to an aid worker,
What would you want them to know or understand about what you all are dealing with?
a scientist,
But what's in it for the Dolphins?
or a foreign leader.
If I may, I will ask the questions. I will ask the questions.
Questions and answers every day on All Things Considered from NPR News.
All Things Considered, weekdays beginning at 3 p.m. on News 88.7.
In another case out of Texas, the Supreme Court's upheld a federal gun law designed to protect domestic violence victims. I'm Craig Cohen. Why the High Court upheld it a week after striking another gun law down on the next Houston Matters.
Tomorrow morning at 9, here on News 88.7.
Welcome back to Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa.
And I'm Fernanda Echavarri. That cold, rainy morning in March, at the humanitarian camp on the U.S. side of the Sasabe border, just as the rain started to pick up, we saw two young-looking men walking up. Gail, the fierce and bubbly dog lover who crosses to feed the dogs in Mexico once a week, had just driven the two men here from a few miles away.
We went to the end of the wall, we turned around and came back, and I said, oh my gosh, there's two men sitting
Finding
there.
a new route.
And they were praying.
So Gail turned to the other volunteer that was in the car with her and said, it's pouring. We're not leaving these people here. The men were so deep in prayer and relief to have entered the U.S. that they didn't even look back at Gail as she drove up to them. The men were Angel and Emmanuel. They had both left their homes in Guatemala 6 weeks earlier.
Ya venimos para adentro, entonces ahí fue el destino donde topamos y vinimos apoyando unos a otros.
They didn't know each other, but met along the way.
Turn
and they
left.
become like brothers.
Cansado, un poco agotado, sí.
They are looking so exhausted. They tell us that once they got closer to the border, they didn't join any large group led by any smuggler, which is not the norm these days. Instead, they quietly followed a group from a distance and hid behind them.
Entonces nosotros cuando miramos que hay gente, pues nos quedamos con uno. Y cuando vemos que ellos se mueven, sí.
They waited until just this morning to cross, and they did it by simply going around the waist-high vehicle barriers where the 30-foot wall just ends. When we asked them who they left behind back at home,
and suddenly there's 150 people here, and these guys are helping, but you just get overwhelmed very quickly.
In recent months, the Tucson sector has been the busiest, or one of the busiest, nationwide. The sector covers most of the Arizona border, spanning across 260 miles, with more than 3,500 agents assigned to it.
Now here's some statistics. Encounters here at the Tucson sector have gone up 140% in the fiscal year of 2024 compared to
crossing the U.S.-Mexico border has climbed, and it has only continued to climb. And it is now pushing border towns to their limit. One of the busiest spots is right here in Arizona.
At this very camp, volunteers have helped groups of 50, 100, sometimes even more. Smugglers guide them to the end of the wall and then tell them to cross.
People from Africa, India, Haiti, Venezuela who have no idea that it will take them hours to walk the 10 miles up and down those steep hills to get to the nearest Border Patrol station. So they are relieved when they get to the camp and they can catch a break.
We spoke with U.S. Customs and Border Protection multiple times to get an interview scheduled, but in the end they said they could not accommodate our request.
So we then sent them specific questions related to the story, and they sent an email with only this answer on the record. Quote, CBP remains vigilant to continually shifting migration patterns and will continue to adjust operations as necessary. CBP continues to work with our partners throughout the hemisphere, including the government of Mexico and around the world, to disrupt the criminal organizations and transportation networks who take advantage of and profit from vulnerable migrants. End quote.
Go straight on.
Standing here in the barren desert, it's hard not to think about how politicized this area will be in the coming months leading up to the election. And as we're leaving the camp, we run into someone who knows about that all too well. Rancher Jim Chilton, one of the most prominent voices in the area. Back in 2016, when Trump promised to expand the border wall, Chilton was, quote, elated. He's a fifth-generation rancher in his mid-80s whose property touches the border.
I have 5.5 miles of the international boundary.
Over the last 20 years, Chilton has testified in Congress multiple times regarding the politics and policies of the U.S.-Mexico border. He's been an avid supporter of the border wall and at times of Trump.
But he has also seen the shift in demographics at the border, from the Mexican single men crossing trying to evade the authorities to the multinational families seeking asylum.
I have 24 wells, 13.5 miles of pipeline, and they go to water troughs for my cattle to drink. And I put fountains on them so people can come along and drink their water and fill up their water bottle and go on. Since I've been on this ranch, over 35 people have died on the ranch. It's just horrible. Now, I don't care whether they're drug packers, whom I have really dislike, or just immigrants coming through. No one needs to die. No one needs to die on my ranch.
According to a recent NPR PBS Marist poll, almost 40% of Republicans and 20% of independents say immigration is the number one issue in the upcoming election. And like in previous elections, Chilton will be talking to anyone who will listen.
Well, some people call it an invasion. All I know is a large, huge number every day come across the end of the wall, which is on my ranch, and come walking down towards Sassabee. The Border Patrol, they want to be apprehended. The ones I'm concerned about coming through my ranch are walking north in camouflage, and many of them are packing drugs.
Recently?
A couple of years ago.
I asked Chilton about the shift in recent years. Now that it's mostly asylum seekers who are looking for Border Patrol rather than evading them.
Yes, the two different types. And so the cartels have shifted people this way. One time I came along this road and saw 205 people. I counted heard that as many as 400 people would walk in a day. The Samaritans, the humane borders people.
Go straight on.
Help them, and it's really nice. It's very significant and wonderful.
There's a lot that can be said about the border, good and bad, terrifying and hopeful. And at the risk of sounding super cheesy, the more time we spent with the Samaritans, honestly, the more we saw these kind-hearted folks as beacons of light in a bleak situation.
Especially Dora, who you've been hearing from throughout our episode. And she also has a message to anyone hearing about a so-called invasion at the border.
I really want people to understand that that is a very, very dangerous word to use. Words make a difference.
Keep left, and then turn left.
Going into our communities illegally. They are processed. They have a paper
Turn left.
clearance. They allow them to be here with documents. You know, there is no invasion.
In the last couple of months, the number of people that the Border Patrol has taken
It's
into
always
custody have in fact decreased, not just in Arizona, but across the U.S.-Mexico border.
And there are many factors that contribute to the number of people coming across the border at any given time. You have Mexico's own ebbs and flows of how it works as an extension of the wall by stopping or detaining non-Mexican migrants along the journey. You have the smuggling tactics and patterns at the hands of cartels, spikes in violence in Mexican border towns like what happened in Sasabe. There's also natural disasters in certain countries, changes in political stability in others, and of course, changes in policy coming out of the White House.
Washington, D.C. is way out there. Make